I always knew I was the unwanted child, but I didn't know how far they'd go until they tried to steal everything I had left. It started a month after Grandpa passed. He wasn't just my grandfather, he was my escape, my safe space in a house that felt more like a courtroom than a home. While my dad barked orders and my mom praised my brother for doing the bare minimum, Grandpa would sneak me cookies, give me books, and whisper in my ear, "Don't worry, kiddo. You'll rise. They'll see." He believed in me even when no one else did. That's why, when the will was read and I learned Grandpa left me everything, his house, his land, his shares in the family business, I nearly collapsed. For the first time in my life, someone had seen my worth and put it in writing. But my family? They saw a target. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video? It started subtle. My dad invited me to dinner. Just me, no brother, no cousins. That never happened growing up. The whole thing felt like a trap, but I went. Maybe, I told myself, they'd finally treat me like a human being. Or maybe they were grieving too and wanted to reconnect. They served my favorite meal. My mom even smiled. Genuinely. For a second, I let myself believe it. Then my brother walked in late as usual, sunglasses on indoors. He sat down and said, "So when are we splitting Grandpa's stuff?" I froze. My fork hit the plate. "We're not," I said carefully. "Grandpa left it all to me." My dad laughed. "You don't actually believe that's fair, do you?" "Fair?" I repeated. "He made his choice. You didn't even visit him the last 3 months. I did." "You don't need all that land," my mom chimed in. "Your brother has a family to support." "He also hasn't had a job in 2 years," I snapped. "I'm the one who took care of Grandpa until the end." My brother leaned forward, calm as ice. "You'll give me half, or you'll regret it." I stood. "No, I'm not giving you a penny." That's when Dad snapped. He screamed, slammed his hands on the table, and stormed toward me. Before I could back up, he shoved me hard. I tumbled down the stairs behind the dining room. 15 wooden steps. When I hit the ground, everything rang. My elbow cracked, my ribs screamed, and blood smeared down my temple. As I lay there groaning, I heard them arguing upstairs, not about whether I was okay, but whether I'd press charges. "She won't call the cops," my mom muttered. "She knows it'll tear the family apart." "She's just dramatic," Dad grunted. "Always has been." They didn't come down. They didn't call an ambulance. I dragged myself out the front door, bruised and barely breathing. And you know what? They were right. I didn't call the police. But not because I was scared. Because I had a plan. They thought they were clever, threatening me, beating me, humiliating me in the same house they raised me in like a second-class citizen. But I had Grandpa's will. I had the property. And I had one more thing they didn't expect. Control. When I got back to Grandpa's farmhouse, I wrapped my ribs in silence and started making phone calls. One to the bank. One to a lawyer. And one to a very old friend of Grandpa's who still owned a construction firm. I wasn't going to give them a single penny. But I was going to make sure they watched everything they thought belonged to them turn to dust, brick by brick. And I wasn't just going to sit back and wait. I was going to make them beg. I didn't heal in a hospital bed. I healed sitting on Grandpa's old porch swing, clutching the deed to the land they thought they could bully out of me. The bruises faded, the cuts healed, but the rage, God, the rage lit a fire so steady and cold it could melt concrete. They thought I was weak because I didn't scream, didn't call the police, didn't make a scene. But silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. While they whispered about me at church and made up stories about how I tripped, I spent the next 3 weeks building a fortress around what was mine. The lawyer, Mr. Halstead, an old man with a sharper bite than anyone would guess, had handled Grandpa's affairs for decades. The moment I told him what had happened, he leaned forward and said, "Your grandfather always suspected they'd come crawling. That's why he left you everything. But I hope you're ready because they're going to fight dirty." I was more than ready. I had him move the farm assets into a private holding trust with my name and a protective clause so airtight not even a blood relative could penetrate it without my written permission. Then, I filed a motion to legally separate all shared family assets that had previously touched Grandpa's business. The house, the trucks, even the storage barn my dad thought he could use. I turned off the water to the fields my brother still thought he could graze on. By the time the 4th week rolled in, the storm hit. My brother showed up first, drunk, entitled, knocking on my door like he owned it. "You think you're better than us now?" he spat, standing outside the front gate I'd just had replaced. "This land was supposed to be mine." I didn't even open the gate. I just looked him dead in the eye and said, "Then why didn't Grandpa give it to you?" He turned red, fists clenched. "Because you manipulated him. You always were a snake. Everyone knows it." "No," I said calmly. "I just stayed." "You ran." He noticed. The next day, my mother came. She brought a casserole. "I know things got a little emotional," she said, standing at the edge of the gravel, smile tight and false. "We just want peace. Can we talk?" "You want peace?" I replied. "Then why didn't you even come downstairs when I was lying in my own blood?" She blinked. "Oh, sweetheart, your father didn't mean to push you. You were being combative, and we were all upset." I stepped closer. "No, you were silent. I begged for help and you looked away." Her voice dropped. "Don't do this. You're tearing the family apart." "No," I snapped. "You did that the day you chose him and my brother over me. The day you laughed when I said I wanted to keep what Grandpa gave me. The day you called me a burden." And then I closed the gate. But that was just the beginning. I invited the local paper to cover the renovation project I was starting on the land, transforming the property into an educational farm and heritage site in Grandpa's name. All proceeds would go to supporting scholarships for rural kids who wanted to escape dead-end family legacies, just like I had. When the article hit the front page, the calls came flooding in. "Is this some PR stunt?" my dad barked over the phone. "You think you can erase us?" I didn't even respond. I hung up. That week, I received a court summons. They were suing me. They claimed undue influence, that I manipulated Grandpa, that I coerced an old man into giving me his fortune. The audacity stunned me, but I'd seen it coming. What they didn't know was that Grandpa had left video recordings for the lawyer, several of them. One dated just 2 days before his death, where he looked into the camera and said, "If my son or grandson ever try to take this away from her, show them this. She earned this. I trust her. And if they're watching, I want them to know. I'm disappointed in you." I played it in court. The silence in that courtroom was louder than any scream. My mother turned white. My brother left the room. My father stared at the floor. The judge dismissed the case. Afterward, outside the courthouse, my father finally walked up to me. His voice cracked. "So, that's it?" "No," I said, stepping close enough for him to feel the weight of what he'd done. "Now I rebuild everything you tried to destroy." He didn't speak again. But I knew he was finally starting to understand what it meant to lose control. And I wasn't finished. I wasn't just going to protect what was mine. I was going to make them beg. 6 months later, the house my parents once ruled like a throne sat quiet, hollowed by their own doing. The town had watched the court case. They'd seen the video. They'd seen my bruises. The whispers that once shamed me now followed them. My father's contracting business lost 3 major clients within weeks. My brother got fired after someone forwarded the article to his company. And my mother? She stopped showing up to church. People stopped inviting her to ladies' luncheons. No one wanted to be associated with the parents who tried to steal their daughter's future by calling her worthless. But I didn't stop there. I hired a team and rebuilt Grandpa's property, replanted the orchard he loved, restored the red barn, and turned the guest house into a small community classroom for agricultural students. I named it the Wallace Trust for Tomorrow, after Grandpa's middle name. Then I did what none of them expected. I sent formal invitations to my entire family for the opening ceremony. I knew they'd show. Pride has a funny way of showing up when reputation is at stake. And they did. My father wore a borrowed suit, my mother smiled a little too tightly, and my brother kept his sunglasses on, even in the shade. They pretended it was water under the bridge. Until they saw the plaque. Right at the entrance, it read, "To those who thought I was too weak, too loud, too much, thank you. You built this with every bruise, every insult, every time you tried to take what was never yours. This land remembers. So do I." There was silence. Except for the camera clicks, press had shown up again. My mother turned to me pale. "Why would you do this?" I smiled. Truth deserves to be seen. My father tried to laugh it off. "This all for revenge? You think this makes you better than us?" "No," I replied, calm. "It just makes me free." Then, the twist they never expected. I announced that I had started a charitable trust using part of Grandpa's inheritance. But none of it would ever go to my parents or brother. Instead, it would fund legal aid for kids whose families tried to manipulate their futures, just like mine had. The first recipient walked up onto the stage with me, a girl no older than 12, whose mother had been committed to a facility by relatives trying to claim her inheritance. I handed her the first scholarship and said into the mic, "Let this be the beginning of something bigger than revenge. Let this be justice." My parents looked like ghosts. And then my brother, arrogant to the end, stepped up after the ceremony. "Look," he said, gritting his teeth. "We were just doing what Dad said. We didn't know Grandpa left it to you for real. We were angry. Can't we talk?" I stared at him, quiet for a long moment. Then I pulled out a white envelope. "You want something? Here." He opened it. Inside was a check for $1 and a note. "So you can't say I never gave you anything. This is the last cent you'll ever see from me." His jaw clenched. "This is a joke." "No," I said. "What you did was the joke. This is the punchline." They left after that. No hugs, no apologies, no legacy to stand on. And me? I walked back inside the farmhouse where the kitchen still smelled like Grandpa's old pipe tobacco and fresh apples. I poured tea, sat by the window, and watched the sun fall behind the trees he planted for me. He believed in me when no one else did. And now? They beg for scraps at the door they once slammed shut in my face. But I don't open it. Some doors are meant to stay closed, so the ones who tried to bury you never forget who got out alive. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.